listening to The Breakfast Show on Faith FM with Skafy and Elliot and producer Shell. Today is Mates Day, May 8th. And if you have a mate that you would like to shout out, we can do this service for you. 0491 064 669 is the number to text, and we will shout out your mate on your behalf. We have already had a number of messages coming through, and we're encouraging more. Text us in.
Or even if you have a mate that you haven't contacted for a while, today's the day to go say, hey, how you doing?
That's right. Maybe you have a special song that you know your mate likes.
Yeah.
And you can request us, and we'll see if we can play it here.
Absolutely.
We're going to be talking about some pretty interesting stories today, Elliot. What are you going to be bringing to the table?
Well, I've got an interesting story, which is today, May 8th, is actually David Attenborough's birthday, as well as some information about some new AI technology that can help discover cancer early on, which is fantastic.
Let's talk about that one, and I'll see if I can do my David Attenborough's impersonation. This is a fine specimen of radio host here. And
I think we might have to give that one a miss.
Practice that one a little bit more. I'm going to be talking about the curious case of Päivi Räsänen.
Whoa.
She's a lady in Finland. She's being sued and persecuted by her own state, by her own church. Because she quoted the Bible.
That's crazy.
It is a crazy story, and it had some new developments recently. This is not a new story to the listener of the Breakfast Show. We spoke about it before, but it's probably one of the most interesting and hairy, I would say, religious freedom cases going on in the entire world.
Wow.
So we're going to be talking about that one. We are also going to have a new quiz question here that producer Shell will very gently and kindly supply and provide for us, free of charge. Please, producer Shell.
Indeed. Which two friends made a covenant because one loved the other as his own soul? Which two friends made a covenant because one loved the other as his own soul? We have correct answers coming in from the studio. 0491 064 669 is our text line for you to play along with us.
That's a great story.
If you know the answer to this one, it's such a great story.
One of the greatest friendships in history.
Yeah, great mates.
Yeah.
They were just great mates.
Just a
for
crazy
sure.
story.
Which two friends made a covenant because one loved the other as his own soul? I think they both loved each other, but one said it, and it's written down. 0491 064 669.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It is great. I love that you can see that in the Bible. You know, stories are just really, really good mates. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a true friendship story.
Yeah.
All right, Elliot, tell us a little bit about David Attenborough.
Okay, well, here it is. Sir David Attenborough, today is his 100th birthday.
Oh, really?
100.
Yeah. And he's still kicking.
Yeah.
Wow.
What's it called? A centenarian or something like that?
Centenarian.
Centenarian, yeah.
He can get a letter from the king.
I'm sure he will get. He's already been knighted.
Yeah, he's met all the royal family, I'm sure, by now.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Because he's still producing stuff.
He slowed down. He did kind of retire, but then he did something last year, and he's still very much working, but he doesn't do as much film stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember when I was younger, my parents would put on, sometimes we watched David Attenborough documentaries, and I just could never, you could never tire from his voice. I just love it, you know. This here is the next animal on the planet. I just love the way he talks. It's excellent.
Yeah. When I was in America, my dad has one of his DVDs, and so we watched the Life series. Have you seen Life?
I think so, yeah.
I haven't.
Okay. Well, it came out like a good 10 or so years ago, and it didn't have David Attenborough's voice on it.
Really?
I'm listening. I'm like, hang on. The version that I have has David Attenborough as the narrator of this, but his version had Oprah. And I'm like,
what?
That's very disappointing.
No.
Very
Give us David
disappointing
Attenborough.
indeed.
Yeah.
I couldn't even get into it as much. And I mean, she has a pleasant enough voice and everything, but his voice is just so designed for that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And his enthusiasm and everything just really comes out in it,
It's like the trademark voice of any nature documentary, It's amazing. And one thing that's cool, for his 100th birthday, guess what his birthday present was?
What?
He got a wasp, a new species of wasp named after him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's called, get this, the wasp, which is actually a parasitic wasp from Chile, is named the Attenbarunculus tau, which is such a crazy name. Attenbarunculus tau. And the reason why, yeah, it is.
I mean, I'm sure that he's so happy.
The reason
he's going to have pictures of that wasp all over his workshop.
Well, this is what's incredible is it's one of more than 50 different species that are named after him. So the guy's had a lot of animals.
Different plants and animals.
Different plants and animals that have been named after him, yeah. Because he's just so revered among the
naturalists and
community. Yeah. And but the interesting thing about this wasp, because I was like, why Attenbarunculus tau? Well, tau is the Greek letter for T, or how you'd pronounce that letter. And this wasp, interestingly, has these two T-like markings on its abdomen, which is why they named it tau, which is kind of interesting. But
so interesting,
there you go.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's parasitic because it actually lays its eggs on other species.
Yeah, lays its eggs on other species or in other species' eggs, and then their eggs will hatch and just eat up what's inside the...
I don't know how much of a present I would consider that.
Yeah,
if that's what it was named after.
Kind of nasty, to be honest. Parasitic stuff, yeah.
It's good military strategy.
Yeah, I guess so.
And it's like super, super tiny wasp.
Yeah, super small. It's only like 3.5 mils in length. So it's very, very small.
Wow.
Very small. That's
amazing.
That's tiny.
Well, happy birthday to Mr. Edinburgh with his wasps. And I pray that he can, in his last days, that he can look at all of the beauty of God's creation and come to the conclusion that we have also come that there is a wonderful God that we serve.
That's true.
Yeah, as much as we loved listening to all of his documentaries, with our kids when they were growing up, we always had to pause and talk through stuff because he was always saying things that just
millions and millions of years to evolve. My kids, when they listen to these documentaries, because sometimes I allow them to watch some nature programs and so on, and I explain to them what the Word of God says about who and when life was created versus what the atheist philosophy shares with millions and millions of years and so on. So my kids learn that actually quite well. Sometimes we're just watching like a dinosaur or some other kind of documentary, and they say, "Daddy, they're saying millions of years, but it's actually thousands of years," just because they don't know the Bible that well. So yeah, that's right.
That's right.
I'll never forget once we were watching one, and David Attenborough said something about millions and millions of something or another, but it wasn't about years. It was just about the number of the animal. But my son, Emerson, he's like, millions and millions.
There you go. That's awesome.
That is so funny. And how can we discover new forms of cancer using AI? What's the strategy?
Now, this is really interesting. So there was a new AI model developed by the Mayo Clinic. Now, I don't know if you know what the Mayo Clinic is, but it's...
they're specialized in mayonnaise and all kinds of...
No, it's not that far away from where I'm from.
Really?
It's in Wisconsin?
But it's very close to the border. It's in Minneapolis.
Oh, really? Yeah. So the Mayo Clinic is
it's a hospital.
Top tier one, like online medical
cancer
source.
Hospital.
Yeah, it's rated as like #1 in the world for a specialty in like cancer and cardio.
And there's
vascular
a
stuff,
lot
like hearts
of
and whatnot.
I've got a cousin who lives in North Dakota, and she drives to the Mayo Clinic every couple of months just for her treatments and stuff.
Because their care is so good.
Yeah, their care is it's worth it. It's like a 9-hour drive for her, but
oh man,
yeah, right.
There you go.
So what have they developed?
Okay, so the Mayo Clinic has detected, or they've developed this AI that can detect pancreatic cancer on routine abdominal CT scans 3 years before normal clinical
Amazing.
diagnosis would be able to identify it.
That is incredible.
Which is absolutely incredible. And this is like getting onto the topic of, is AI good for us? Is it bad for us? Like there's a lot of stuff that AI can do, and it's pretty crazy, like some of the things that it's able to do at this stage, and it's only like just starting to be formed pretty much. But this is one of the things AI can do that is really amazingly beneficial for us. And because the issue with pancreatic cancer is that it's very difficult to detect. And for that reason, it makes it very deadly. Because if you can't detect it early enough, then it becomes very, very difficult to halt the progress of that cancer, and it can easily spread into other areas of your body. So what happens is normally more than 85% of patients that receive a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer have received it after the cancer's already spread.
So that isn't that the cancer that Steve Jobs died from?
I'm actually
pancreatic
not
cancer.
Sure, you'd have to look that one up, but it's a deadly cancer. It's a really bad one. If you end up being diagnosed with it, it's a very
it was pancreatic cancer.
Oh, there you go. So the survival rate is very low. It's only like below 15% of people that have pancreatic cancer end up surviving from it. So what happens is this AI has come along. They've called it the system, it's called the radiomics-based early detection model, or RED-MOD. And what happens is this system, RED-MOD, is able to analyze the data of previous CT scans. They've put in like 2,000 previous CT scans of just, abdominal scans. And they've been able to use that to train it to be able to detect pancreatic cancer really early on, way earlier than what we would normally be able to do, which is super useful.
It can probably spot signs that we miss, but they're so tiny. But and sometimes this is what happens with AI. It's able to spot patterns that we can't.
Yeah.
And that is the superpower of AI, really. Looking at billions and billions of data and making connections that to our brain would just be very hard to do.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like it's so good that it's able to do that, because then when it identifies it earlier, the chance of actually surviving from that cancer is a lot higher, because the earlier you can get to pancreatic cancer, the better, is basically what we know from it.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
It's now the time for an answer. We demand answers. Producer Shell, please let us know what is the answer to the quiz question.
That doesn't sound so friendly.
Yeah, we demand answers. Well, we'll see that my story today will be about demanding answers. So we're quite on the theme here.
All right.
Okay. Well, our answer to question number 3 was David and Jonathan. They were besties, for sure.
Yeah.
And, was it David who said, as his own soul?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Davo and Jono,
Davo and
the
Jono.
best of mates, where Jono's dad, King Saul, was trying to destroy David's life.
Yeah.
Jono sided with David. And by siding with David, he actually ended up siding with the Lord.
Yeah.
The father didn't like it, but Jonathan said, Dad, you're being so unreasonable here. And Saul actually once even tried to kill Jonathan because of that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, some crazy story.
That's
But what
crazy.
a great friendship.
Yeah.
We got a message from Wayne. Good morning. Blessings. Love you all. It's been a few weeks since listening to you because the radio hasn't been working too well in Canberra. It is awesome today. Happy Mates Day to you guys and my bestest mate who is always there for me no matter what. Jesus. Love you, mate. Thank you very much, man. That's awesome. That's an awesome message.
That is so true.
Yes.
Best
Jesus
mate.
is our best mate.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's move on to demanding answers now. We have
I
a
wanna know
Bible
what
trial
this
here. This
story
story,
is.
buckle your seatbelts here because this story is a bit crazy. So you haven't probably heard about that case, even though it's a very famous one. It's called the Päivi Räsänen case. I'm hoping I'm not butchering her name.
I love the way you roll your
She
R's
is
there. It's
a
awesome.
medical doctor in Finland who's also a politician. She's a member of the parliament. And she's a Christian, devout Christian. She's a mother of 5. And the story happened when she called out in 2019. she tweeted, at the time X was still Twitter,
Yeah.
and she posted a post with a Bible verse from Romans chapter 1, verses 24 to 27. I'm going to tell you what that verse is in a second so it can be refreshed in your memory.
Okay.
But the context is, in Finland, the Lutheran Church is the official state church, the Evangelical Lutheran Church, and she's a part of that church.
Okay.
She's identifies as a Lutheran Church
Yeah.
member, and for some reason they had a LGBTQ Pride March, and they had some events in around the time in Finland, and one of the big sponsors of the LGBTQ festivities and events was the Finland Evangelical Lutheran Church. And she started to ask her question, why is the state church sponsoring an event that conflicts with the ethics and the lifestyle of the Bible?
Yeah.
So she posted a post, and she quoted Romans chapter 1, verse 24 to 27, which says this: "Therefore God gave them up to uncleanness in the lusts of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves, who exchanged the truth of God for the lie, and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this reason God gave them up to vile passions. For even their women exchanged the natural use for what is against nature. Likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust for one another, men with men, committing what is shameful, and receiving in themselves the penalty of their error, which was due." This is the words from the Apostle Paul. This is the words inspired by God.
Yeah.
She took a picture of that part of her Bible. She highlighted it. She took a picture, and she says, why is my church, the Lutheran Church in Finland, sponsoring a pride event of something that the Bible calls shameful?
That's a great question.
That was the question.
That's a great question.
And it was enough to unleash all the fire and brimstone from the state authorities onto her. Actually, she was prosecuted straight after by not only her church, but from the state. And in Finland, they're kind of the same thing. They're very intermeshed because it's an official state church.
Yeah, there you go.
So prosecutors accused her and a co-defendant, a Lutheran bishop named Johanna Pojola, who is a theologian, and he is also a father of 4, because they started to investigate their lives. Hey, we need to send these people to jail. And you can only imagine what kind of lobby is behind those kinds of accusations. I need to tell you which one it is. And they're basically were persecuted for agitation against a population group under a section of Finland's criminal code dealing with war crimes and crimes against humanity. They're just saying this is a crime against humanity. What you said, this Bible verse is a crime. It's a war crime.
Wow, that's mind-blowing.
So 7 years later, and you can only imagine how much energy draining of a process it is for you to be persecuted. She and Bishop Johanna, they were both acquitted in 2022 and 2023 by the lower courts. They're saying, look, no, these expressions are protected. This is religious speech. They do not meet the threshold for criminal insult, and they even ordered the prosecution to pay all the legal fees.
Oh wow! Okay.
Okay, so it looks like it had a happy
it looks like
ending for them, but it didn't, because part of this process, they not only processed her for this 2019 post, but also for a radio show that she was interviewed on in 2019, and they also went back all the way to 2004.
What?
Like 20 years later, where she wrote a church pamphlet entitled Male and Female, He Created Them, talking about God's ideal for Christian marriage. And it was that pamphlet that they unearthed from 20 years back that they were basing their accusations of war crimes.
What? That doesn't even make any sense.
So last month, actually a bit over a month ago, in March 26, in a narrow 3-2 decision, this matter was escalated to the Supreme Court of Finland by the prosecution, and the Supreme Court found that she had no issues, no problems in her original tweet. She had no problems with her radio show, but that they found issue with her pamphlet that she wrote in 2004 about sexuality from a Bible perspective.
That is unbelievable.
And the Supreme Court condemned her to criminally under the section that, under war crimes for that pamphlet, and her punishment was to pay 1,800 euros. So the punishment was a bit of a slap in the hand.
Yeah.
But to be criminally convicted for a war crime because you wrote a pamphlet 20 years ago about biblical sexuality, that is unheard of.
That's insane. The thing that doesn't make sense to me is, like, if it was written 20 years ago, like they're pulling up evidence over 20 years. That is so long. Like, she could have become a completely different person.
That's right.
But then for them, like, the thing that doesn't make sense to me is, like, well, shouldn't the laws that were written for that time then apply to that thing? Like, shouldn't they go, okay, it was done in 2004.
But these laws already existed. But these laws were created in the context of World War II against, like, extreme incitation of violence.
Right. Yeah.
They're applying that now to quoting the Bible.
That's just ridiculous.
And not only that, look at this, and I thought that I would be, we were way beyond those days, but the Supreme Court ordered that all of her pamphlets would be completely taken out from the internet, and all the existing physical copies of that pamphlet in libraries or whatever they are, in church libraries, in people's homes, be seized and destroyed, burned to the ground. Yeah.
Wow. That's insane. That's like the most petty thing ever.
Yeah, no, right.
Just be like, oh, well, you just wrote a pamphlet that I don't agree with, so let's burn it all.
Let's destroy it.
That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. But, look, whenever you see things that are so further from common sense, you always ask the question, is there a spiritual thing behind it? And I think there is a spiritual thing behind it. Now, she's not, look, I think that they challenged the wrong woman, to be honest, because not only she's a servant of the Lord Jesus, but she's also very, very courageous, very brave woman. She's not, I'm appealing. And I'm appealing to the European Union Supreme Court because, this opens up a precedent. You can think, like you just pay your fine, 1,800 euros, like what is that in Aussie dollars, like $4,000. You pay that fine, move on with your life. I said, no, because if me writing about what the Bible says can be constituted as a war crime, who's next? Yeah. In Europe, there has been a similar case in Sweden by a man called Ake Green in 2003. He was sentenced to 1 month in prison for a sermon where he called homosexuality a cancer and citing the Bible. Now, he appealed. The conviction was overturned. The Sweden Supreme Court emphasized, that, he was protected by religious expression. And I would say it might have been a very unfortunate choice of words. I wouldn't use that word myself to talk about that topic. But again, we see a pattern here that you say something against, or you say something in the Bible that goes against the prevailing beliefs on LGBTQ sexuality. And what happens is that, people will dug up your entire past, your entire life. They're going to find something you wrote 20 years ago or something you said somewhere or something you posted online, and they're going to drag you to courts, and they will cause you to, lose all time with your family, time from your work.
That's
often these processes involve thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars that you have to spend. Sometimes people have to remortgage their homes so that they can pay for these costs. They're overburdening the state system, the judicial system, just because they don't agree with the Bible.
Yeah, that's just so ridiculous.
So this is a very ridiculous case, and I'm praying that she can get a great outcome and that God is going to bring some incredible good out of this really persecution for her faith.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
And it is now the time for our interview with Jeremy Dixon. Jeremy, are you in the line with us? Can we hear you? Can you hear us?
Hello.
Oh, nice to hear you, mate. Oh, happy Mates Day, by the way, Jeremy. You are one of my mates that cooks the best.
It's awesome. Great to hear from you.
Hey, Jeremy, talk about mates and mates days. I think that, good mates, they encourage each other to, get stronger and healthier. And one of the things that I've been quite interested at the moment, and we've been discussing, a lot of people have been really interested, is tackling that myth that, hey, if you're in a plant-based diet, you're probably going to be protein deficient. And last time that we spoke about a month and a half ago, you shared with us that no, actually tofu and tempeh are really versatile and protein absolutely packed foods. But in this plant-based world, can we only count on tofu for protein, or are there other plants that God has created that are rich in protein and will support muscle growth, development, and just protein intake in general?
Yeah, great lead in there. Of course, there's plenty of plant-based protein, and it's a big myth that you can't get enough protein on a vegetarian or a vegan diet. There's plenty of things around. It's the last time I think we talked about tempeh and tofu, which is wonderful. But today I thought I'd share some other ones that we use extensively through my cookbooks and cafes that not only have reasonable good levels of protein, but they're really delicious, really easy, and super, super cheap.
All right. So what plants are we talking about?
So the first one I think is one of my most favourite one is red lentils, or lentils in general. And you can get many different kinds of lentils. If you buy like an Indian dal from an Indian shop, they'll usually have red lentils in. You can get brown lentils and black lentils and green lentils as well. But my most favourite lentil is the red lentil. And the good news is in 1 cup of red lentils there's 18 grams of protein. So
Wow.
that's quite a significant amount.
That's cooked or
and the good
uncooked?
thing that's uncooked.
Mm-hmm.
So basically to cook them, they're just so easy. It's so quick. Basically, you take 1 cup of red lentils and probably 3.5 to 4 cups of water, and then you basically simmer it for about 15 minutes, and bang, you've got this lovely kind of dal-looking thing. You can add onions to it, salt, garlic, any means of other things. Even by itself, it's quite delicious. And that's a great base for making dals or curries or adding to soups and things. So red lentils, and they're so cheap as well. So red lentils is probably your number one starting point. At my cafe each day we have a different dal of the day, and so often we're using red lentils and making these amazing dals, and it's just such an amazing, high protein, delicious, and it's kind of quite a nice meaty kind of, not super meaty taste, but it's kind of, you eat it and you kind of know you're eating, you kind of know you're eating protein. It's quite a nice product.
Yeah, there is. I remember the first time that I had red lentils, because in Brazil, they were not very common and popular. I remember that when they arrived there about 10 or so years ago, I had them, and my mind just blown away. It's like, wow, this is so delicious. And depending on how you make it, actually can taste a little bit like chicken.
True. Yep. There's many different ingredients you can kind of put with it. Exactly. No, they're really, really good. So I'd recommend, get a big bag of red lentils in your pantry, and it'll just change your life.
Amazing. So red lentils, this is like one shining star in the constellation of protein-rich foods. And I love how you simplified, just like chuck 2.5 cups to 4 cups of water, season with salt, pepper, bit of garlic and onion, and off you go. Or if you want to make it something more fancy, you can. What else do we have here in our list here that we can also go to for a packed meal? And you mentioned just before but you mentioned other kinds of lentils. How do you cook them?
So in a similar way, so basically water and just boil them. So some of them will take a bit longer. So red lentils are the quickest. Brown lentils is quite nice, especially if you want to add it to a lasagna or something like that, and or a curry or a soup or a stew or a casserole. But definitely cook them off first usually, so you've got them cooked. So brown lentils can take up to half an hour, and they go a bit mushy. But one of my favourite ones is actually the French poi lentils or green lentils. And they're really cool because they keep their shape. So they go soft and they keep their shape. So they're really nice for salads and when you kind of want to still have a little bit of texture, whereas some of the other lentils go like a little bit mushy. So they're really good as well. So, and also if you go down to your local Indian shop, you'll find another probably 5 different types of random lentils and split peas and things that you can use, and just give them a go, and they're all quite fun.
In my supermarket near my home, I just recently saw white lentils. That's actually a novelty to me. Have you tried them before? Are they nice?
That might be the Uridale, is it? There's a Urid lentil, which sometimes comes with a black coating, and sometimes they kind of polish it off, so it might be that Urid one. And that's really good for making things like doses and things like that. So that's really a really nice lentil as well. Yeah, so that's the one I'm thinking of. It's a really cool one to have as well. It's got a bit of a more earthy taste to it, but it's a really, really good one to use as well. Oh, the other thing about lentils I need to tell you about is you can make lentil flatbread. And that's where you basically get red lentils, get some cold water, blend it up in a blender. You may need to let it sit and soak a bit till you've got a really super smooth kind of paste. And so basically it's like a pancake mix. Then you get your hot pan out, a little bit of oil or a non-stick pan. You pour this pancake mix in, or this lentil mix, which is just lentils and water and a little bit of salt. And you basically, after a couple of minutes, you get these beautiful flatbreads.
So you don't need you don't need to cook them prior to blending them?
No, you don't want to cook. No, if you cook them, it changes the whole texture, so they need to be raw. If you cook them prior to they won't stick together. So you need to actually blend them when they're raw with some water. And you may need to soak them or blend them a couple of times just to make sure they do get totally soaked with the water. You don't want water and little bits of gritty lentils. And it becomes this amazing pancake mixture. But to answer your question, it won't work if you use pre-cooked lentils. If you use pre-cooked lentils, it won't stick together. It needs to be done cold.
And how do you season that one? Just with a bit of salt, or do you add anything to make it taste nice, or does it taste nice as it is?
So I'll often just do salt, possibly a little bit of onion and garlic powder, which is quite quick to do as well. You can add some flaked yeast if you kind of want to have a bit of a cheesy flavour. Sometimes I'll mix in a little bit of cashew butter or almond butter just to kind of get a little bit of extra unique flavour as well. You can throw herbs in. Basically anything you can think of when you make a flatbread. And
incredible.
It's a really fun way to make things as well.
That's very
and you
cool.
just adjust it. It's like making any pancakes. You know, the first pancake is like your first child. They're always a kind of a practice run. So you kind of may want to adjust the kind of the consistency, add a bit more water or something until you get the consistency that kind of works with your fry pan at that particular moment.
That's a good tip. Absolutely. Very practical. So moving on from the world of lentils, who are the next heavyweight contenders here for the prize of most protein-packed plant foods?
Well, I love chickpeas. And you can use them for so many things. And 1 cup of cooked chickpeas has about 15 grams of protein. So that's pretty cool.
Wow.
And so chickpeas, again, so that's the trick. You can buy them canned in the supermarket. But if you want to save huge amounts of money and have fresh chickpeas, cook them yourself. It's just so easy. It just takes a little bit of preparation. So what you have to do is overnight you have to soak them. So basically get like a big bag of chickpeas and soak them in your biggest pot with water, and they'll expand probably 3 times. So you want to make sure you've got lots of water. It's not just cover them. You probably need 3 times the depth. And coming in the morning, they expand about 2 to 3 times. And then once they're soaked, you drain that water out, and then you put them in another pot of water and you cook those up. You basically just have it simmering, and it can take anywhere between 1 to 2 hours, depending on the age of the chickpea. And an old chickpea is not necessarily bad, but they will take a little bit longer to get soft. And so when they're soft, you pretty much pull them out. I just basically put it on the bench and kind of squeeze it with my finger. And if it easily kind of squeezes out and it's nice and soft, you know it's done. But if it's kind of blocky or hard, you kind of keep going. And then what you do is you put them in little plastic containers or whatever and put them in your freezer. And you've got an unlimited supply of chickpeas that you can use at a moment's notice. When you can use them to make hummus, use them to make curries, even just sauteed up with a little bit of olive oil and garlic. Chickpeas are amazing. So that's a great protein source. So any casserole, curry, just fry your chickpeas in. I mean, if you don't have time to cook them up ahead of time, that's fine. You can still use canned ones. But yeah, they're really good. They're really kind of quite nice and moorish. And again, 15 grams of protein per cup. That's getting pretty close to some meat products.
Absolutely. And with the chickpeas, my question is, for you to do the hummus, after you freeze them, do you need to thaw them first or reheat them, or you throw them like frozen? What's the process?
So they come out of the freezer, you just basically drain them in a sieve in some hot water for about probably a minute, and they defrost really, really quickly. Making hummus, I think I've shared hummus recipes before, but hummus, making your own hummus is just a glorious thing to do.
Yeah.
Have it in the fridge to be able to add it on curries or as a dipper thing. It's just a great thing.
There's something about hummus that when you go to store-bought hummus, it tastes so artificial. And I've tried all of the brands. I've tried these expensive ones, the cheap ones. There's nothing that comes anywhere even close to homemade hummus. It's just one product that just won't surrender to industrialization, I don't think.
Exactly. There's nothing like your own freshly made hummus. Exactly.
And can you expedite that cooking process? You mentioned between 1 and 2 hours. Can you just chuck them in the pressure cook and make things quicker?
Yeah, yes, you can. Yes, that's a good question. You can make it quicker in a pressure cooker. My experience is I just like the simpleness of on the stove. You don't have to do any work. But if you are in a hurry, you can pressure cook them as well. Although I just think it's the palaver around a pressure cooker. They're great to use, but you need to open it. Are they actually cooked yet, and put it back on again? So, but yes, you can pressure cook them, and I think you can sometimes save up to half the time if you want to.
All right, and moving on to the next big group of protein heroes. What about beans? What do you make of them? Because this is a very diverse family, aren't they?
Exactly. So again, beans are wonderful, and they're very high in fibre. The cooking process is the same as chickpeas, where you can pre-cook them or you can buy them in a can. And again, they just go in everything. Any casserole or curry or anything you want, you can even make dips of them. But yeah, beans are great. Red kidney beans are great for Mexican stuff. Black beans, they cook really quickly because they're quite a bit smaller. And there's the beautiful white butter beans and other beans as well. So again, go down to your local Indian shop or your international shop and you can find a myriad of different sizes and shapes of beans. So it's really good. Bean salads are really delicious as well. And again, you can cook them up and have them in your freezer if you want to as well. So yeah, beans, again, similar amount of protein. Most of them I think range between about 10 to 15 grams per cup of protein, 10 to 15 grams of protein per cup of cooked. So, they're really good in terms of their protein content too.
So what is the simplest way to cook those beans to make them taste nice? Because I've spoken to some of my friends and that did not grow up eating beans like I do, and they look at beans and they automatically twist their noses. So what is a simple way to cook them to make them taste nice?
Okay, the number one thing that people get wrong is that they serve beans that are hard. So again, the texture is really important. And some of the canned beans you get from some of the mass producers and overseas, they don't cook them properly, so they'll come hard. And you don't get that nice Moorish kind of melt in your mouth kind of texture. So that's number one. Make sure your canned beans aren't too hard. And if you do cook them yourself, make sure you cook them properly so they're soft. That's the number one mistake people make. And secondly, it's what you put with them. It's basically the rules of any cooking. And with vegetarian or vegan cooking, you do have to work a bit harder with your flavors. With meat, you get all that flavor of the salt and the uric acid and the blood that comes through and gives it natural flavor. Beans and chickpeas don't really come with natural flavors. You've got to work a bit harder with all your things like garlic and onion and ginger are things that are important in dishes to give them some really nice, flavors, and all the other flavors you attach to it as well. Salting it well, having herbs and spices and things. So you do have to work a bit harder to make beans taste good compared to meat.
Wow, thank you so much. Hey, Jeremy, who would have thought that there will be so many amazing alternatives of really protein-packed foods, really heavyweight contenders that if people are after, protein-rich foods. Thank you so much for giving us a bit of a run down on the various kinds of beans, legumes, seeds, all amazing things that God has created for our own health. I remember even seeing Dr. McGregor. Dr. Greger. He's very famous online as being a plant-based doctor, and he says for optimal health, eat beans 3 times a day. Morning, afternoon, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that's how you get optimal health. These foods are so healing, so amazing. Jeremy, thank you so much. We're looking forward to chat with you again next month, and I'm looking forward to see what you're going to be bringing to us. In the meantime, if you would like to buy some of Jeremy's books, he has a series called Revive Cafe Cook 30, cookbooks with recipes that are down to earth, they're healthy, they're delicious, and they only take 30 minutes or less to be cooked and prepared. If you'd like to know more about them, you can go online, look for Revive Cafe cookbooks, or you can text us here with hashtag Revive, and we are going to send you a link to some of our favorite books of Jeremy's collection. And we're now going to be moving on to a next song. This is going to be by Ellie Hookham with Rock of Habitation. Enjoy that one. Stay tuned, and we are going to come back to talk about prayer.
Be thou to me a rock of habitation, to which I may continually come. Be thou to me the strength of my salvation, the rock that I stand on will never fall. For Lord, you are God, and I am unworthy. Thank you for loving me in spite of my sin. For your love is life. Without it, I am nothing. Help me to stand on your firm foundation.
Thanks for being a part of the Faith FM family. Join our community on Facebook or get in touch at 1-800-FAITH-FM.